Deshaun Watson is firmly in the MVP race and has been among the league's best quarterbacks for the first half of the 2019 season. Watson was a beast in college for Clemson, helping them win the national championship before opting for the draft, where he's been an absolute standout for the Texans. He made the Pro Bowl last season behind his 4,165 yards and 26 touchdowns as he continues to improve for the Texans. Despite his success, Watson wasn't taken until the 12th overall pick in the 2017 NFL Draft. This is, who were the 11 players drafted before Deshaun Watson? Before we jump into those selected before Watson, let's take a look at how he's gotten to where he is today. Deshaun Watson was born in 1995 in Georgia. He attended Gainesville High School, where he won the starting quarterback job as a freshman. He set numerous Georgia State records over his high school career, including his 17,134 total yards, 218 total touchdowns, 13,077 passing yards, and 155 passing touchdowns. He also rushed for 4,057 yards and helped the Red Elephants win the state title as a junior. They made the state semifinals 3 times under Watson. He was the 2014 player to watch and was named a 2014 top 100 recruit. He was the #1 quarterback recruit for the class of 2014 and committed to play college football at Clemson. Watson started his freshman season as the backup to Cole Stout. He outperformed Stout and was named as a starter, where he threw for a school record 6 touchdowns in his first game. Watson missed games throughout the year due to a broken bone in his hand and later an LCL strain. He returned for the Battle of South Carolina against the Gamecocks, where the Tigers won, but it was revealed after that Watson had played with a torn ACL and had to undergo surgery and missed the Tigers bowl game against the Oklahoma Sooners. He finished with 1,466 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 200 rushing yards, and 5 scores. Watson returned from injury and dominated for Clemson, helping the Tigers to an undefeated season up to the national championship, where they narrowly lost to the Alabama Crimson Tide in a game where he broke the record for passing yards in a national championship game with 478. Along the way, he was named the ACC Championship Game Most Valuable Player and the Orange Bowl MVP. He was the first player to ever pass for over 4,000 yards and rush for over 1,000. He had 4,109 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 1,105 rushing yards, and 12 touchdowns. He was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy and was the ACC Player of the Year. Watson built on his impressive season as a junior, passing for 4,593 yards, 41 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, 629 rushing yards, and 9 scores. He led the Tigers to the national championship game again, this time resulting in a victory over the Crimson Tide. He was named the national championship game offensive MVP, won the Davey O'Brien and the Manning Awards for the 2nd consecutive year, and was the Heisman finalist again. Watson declared for the draft, where he was projected to be a first rounder and was rated as the best or second best quarterback by most scouts. The Texans traded up with the Browns to select Watson with the 12th overall pick. Watson played in the first game of the season in relief of starter Tom Savage, who was benched at halftime. He impressed immediately for the Texans, and in a win over the Titans in week 4, broke the NFL rookie record for touchdowns in a game with 5. Through the first 7 games of his rookie campaign, he had 1,699 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, leading to him being named AFC Offensive Player and NFL Offensive Rookie of the Month in October. But the season turned quickly when Watson tore his ACL during practice, ending his season. He debuted on the NFL Top 100 list at 50th for his impressive rookie campaign. He returned from injury and helped the Texans win the AFC South before losing in the wildcard round to the divisional rival Colts. Watson finished the season with 4,165 yards, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 551 rushing yards, and 5 scores. He made his first career Pro Bowl and was ranked 51st on the NFL Top 100 list. Through the first half of the 2019 season, Watson is atop the NFL MVP race, behind his 2,231 yards, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 242 rushing yards, and 5 scores. Now, onto those selected before the young quarterback. With the first overall pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns selected defensive end Myles Garrett out of Texas A&M. Garrett came into Texas A&M as the 2nd best recruit in the nation, and as a freshman at Texas A&M, broke the school record for sacks by a freshman with 5.5 in just 6 games. Garrett finished the year with 11 sacks and 49 tackles. He was a consensus freshman All-American, but had to undergo surgery on his hand due to torn ligaments the following season. Garrett built on a stellar freshman year, leading the SEC in sacks with 11.5 and added 59 tackles and his only collegiate interception. He was named first team All-SEC and won the Bill Willis Award as the nation's top defensive lineman. Garrett dealt with injuries as a junior, playing in only 10 games. He recorded 8.5 sacks, 33 tackles, and was named first team All-SEC for the 2nd consecutive season. He was projected as a top pick and declared for the draft, where he was taken by the Browns 1st overall. Garrett, Chicago Bears owned the 2nd overall pick, where they selected North Carolina QB Mitch Trubisky. Trubisky spent 3 years at North Carolina before he became the starter. Over the 3-year span, he had 1,014 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Trubisky played in all 13 games as a junior, having a successful season as the Tar Heels made the Sun Bowl but lost to Stanford. Trubisky finished with 3,748 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions on the year. He was named 3rd team All-ACC and forewent his senior season for the draft. Trubisky was projected to be a first-round pick and was ranked anywhere from the 1st to 4th best quarterback in the class. He was taken by the Bears and was the backup quarterback to Mike Glennon, but took over after the Chicago Bears started 1-3. He showed some potential in his rookie season with 2,015 yards, the most by a Bears rookie quarterback, and threw 7 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. After the disappointing year, the Bears decided to fire head coach John Fox and replace him with Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy. Nagy was huge for Trubisky in his first season, as the team also brought in offensive weapons Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, and Trey Burton. Chicago won the NFC North for the first time since 2010, and Trubisky made his first career Pro Bowl after tallying 3,223 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions during the season. Through the first quarter of the 2019 NFL season, Trubisky had struggled, recording just 588 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He went down with a shoulder injury and missed the next game before his eventual Week 7 return. Stanford defensive end Solomon Thomas was taken with the 3rd pick by the San Francisco 49ers. Thomas redshirted his freshman season at Stanford before playing in every game the following season. He finished the season with 3.5 sacks and 39 tackles en route to being an all Pac-12 honorable mention. Thomas broke out the next year, recording 8 sacks and 62 tackles. He was named first team all Pac-12 and won the Morris Trophy as the best defensive lineman in the conference. Thomas declared for the draft, where he was projected to be a first-round pick and a top defensive lineman in the draft behind Garrett. Thomas hasn't been a standout player since being drafted by the 49ers, but has recently earned himself a new 4-year contract. In his first 2 years as a pro, he recorded just 4 sacks and 72 tackles. And through the first half of the 2019 season, Thomas had just 2 sacks and 17 tackles. 4th overall, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected LSU running back Leonard Fournette. Fournette was praised by media prior to college and was even called the next Adrian Peterson. He didn't disappoint and impressed immediately as a freshman, recording 1,034 yards and 10 touchdowns. But that was only the beginning of the legend of Leonard Fournette. It was in his sophomore year when he took over college football. He finished 6th in Heisman voting and won the NCAA rushing title. He set LSU records running for 1,953 yards and 22 touchdowns. He was an early favorite to win the Heisman as a junior, but had a high ankle sprain on and off throughout the entire year. Fournette played in just 7 games with 843 yards and 8 touchdowns. He declared for the draft, where he was a top prospect and was drafted by the Jaguars with the 4th pick. He immediately made an impact in the pros as the top running back in his rookie campaign, but only played in 13 games, dealing with minor injuries and a suspension for violating team rules. He finished the year with 1,040 yards and 9 touchdowns. The expectations for Fournette were huge in 2018, but he dealt with injuries again. He dealt with a hamstring injury and even got suspended after getting into a fight against the Bills, limiting him to just 8 games. He had 439 yards and 5 touchdowns. In the first half of the 2019 season, not only has Fournette been healthy, but he's been great. He already has 791 rushing yards and has added 263 through the air. He's been great, but oddly has only found the end zone once. The Tennessee Titans owned the 5th overall pick, where they took Western Michigan's wide receiver Corey Davis. Davis was a standout at Western Michigan in all 4 of his seasons. After being named MAC Freshman of the Year, Davis went on to make first team All-MAC the next 3 seasons. Additional accolades include winning the 2014 famous Idaho Potato Bowl MVP and being named MAC Offensive Player of the Year as a senior. Davis is the all-time leader in career reception yards in NCAA history with an insane 5,278 yards. He also had 52 touchdowns in his time at Western Michigan. Despite battling an ankle injury, he was considered a top wideout in the draft and was taken by Tennessee. He unfortunately battled a hamstring injury for much of his rookie campaign and finished with just 375 yards. After returning to full health for 2018, Davis played in every single game, recording 891 yards and 4 touchdowns. So far through the first half of 2019, Davis has a disappointing 326 yards and 2 scores. LSU safety Jamaal Adams was selected with the 6th overall pick by the New York Jets. Adams played in every game for LSU as a freshman. He recorded a sack and 66 tackles. Adams improved as a sophomore, making 2nd team All-SEC behind his 67 tackles, 4 interceptions, and 1 forced fumble season. He continued to improve as a junior year as he made his first team All-SEC. He had a sack, 76 tackles, 1 interception, and 1 forced fumble that season. He was projected as the top safety in the class after declaring for the draft and foregoing his remaining eligibility. He was taken by the Jets and started every game as a rookie, making the Pro Football Writers Association All-Rookie team with 2 sacks, 83 tackles, and a forced fumble. He made a huge jump in his sophomore season as he made his first career Pro Bowl and improved in every statistical category with 3.5 sacks, 115 tackles, 1 interception, and 3 forced fumbles. He was ranked 37th on the NFL's top 100 list. Adams has emerged as one of the league's top safeties, and in the first half of the 2019 season already has a sack, 43 tackles, and an interception. 7th overall, the Los Angeles Chargers took Clemson wide receiver Mike Williams. Williams played in every game for Clemson as a freshman, and with limited playing time, racked up 316 yards and 3 scores. He returned as a starter as a sophomore and saw a major jump in production with 1,030 yards and 6 touchdowns. Williams is expected to improve further in his junior season, but in the first game of the season suffered a broken bone in his neck and missed the remainder of the year. He was granted redshirt status and returned the following season as a starter for the Tigers. Williams led Clemson with 1,361 yards and 11 touchdowns on the year, and also helped Clemson to a national championship victory over Alabama alongside junior stud quarterback Deshaun Watson. He made first team All-ACC and declared for the draft. He was ranked anywhere from the 1st to 3rd best wide receiver in the draft and was a top prospect. Williams missed the first 6 games of the Chargers seasons with a herniated disc, but even after returning, didn't make an impact, recording just 95 yards as a rookie. He returned and showed minimal flashes during the 2018 season as he compiled 664 yards and 10 touchdowns. Williams has been solid, but far from elite. For the first half of the 2019 season, Williams has a solid 530 yards, but is yet to find the end zone. The Carolina Panthers own the 8th overall pick, where they selected Stanford running back Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey played in every single game as a freshman at Stanford, running for 796 all-purpose yards and 2 scores. In his sophomore season, McCaffrey broke out, breaking the NCAA record for all-purpose yards with 3,864, a record previously held by Barry Sanders. He set school records for rushing yards with 2,019, rushing yards in a game with 243, all-purpose yards in a game with 461, and added 15 total scores. McCaffrey was the Pac-12 Player of the Year and was awarded the Paul Hornung Award, given to the nation's most versatile player, and the Jet Award, given to the top return man. McCaffrey finished 2nd in Heisman voting to Derrick Henry. The next year as a junior, McCaffrey led the nation in all-purpose yards with 2,327 and led the Pac-12 in rushing yards with 1,603. He was named first team All-Pac-12 for the 2nd consecutive year and opted to declare for the draft, where he was taken by the Panthers. As a rookie, McCaffrey emerged as a top player in the class, becoming the first rookie running back in NFL history with at least 70 receptions and 5 touchdown catches. He finished his rookie campaign with 1,086 yards from scrimmage and 7 scores. He was poised for a breakout year in 2018, and he delivered big time, becoming the Panthers franchise record holder for all-purpose yards in the season with 1,965. He added 14 scores and set a Panthers record for most scrimmage yards in a game with 237 against the Seahawks. So far, through the first half of 2019, McCaffrey has been even better, already accumulating 881 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns, 363 receiving yards, and 3 scores. McCaffrey, alongside with Watson, is in the MVP race early. Washington wide receiver John Ross was selected with the 9th overall pick by the Cincinnati Bengals. Ross played in every single game for Washington as a true freshman, and in limited playtime racked up 208 yards and a score. Ross also returned kicks, where he finished the year with 720 yards and a score. As a sophomore, he spent time playing offense, defense, and special teams. Ross had 371 yards, 4 scores, 12 tackles, and an interception as a corner. He continued his kickoff return success with 938 yards and 2 scores. During spring practices in 2015, Ross unfortunately tore his ACL and was granted a medical redshirt for the season. He returned from injury and in his first game back had 90 yards, 2 scores, and added a kick return score against Rutgers. The impressive showing was a sign of what was to come for Ross. He went on to have a breakout season and finished the season with 1,122 yards and 17 touchdowns. He was Pac-12 Player of the Year and declared for the draft. Ross was projected to be a first rounder and a top wide receiver in the draft, and despite a torn labrum in his shoulder, participated at the Combine and was selected by the Bengals. Ross has always been known for his speed, and it showed at the Combine when he ran a 4.22 40-yard dash. Ross competed for a starting job in training camp and ultimately was named the 6th wide receiver for the Bengals as a rookie. Ross had a single touch on the year, a 12-yard run that he fumbled. The year was disastrous for Ross, from both injuries and playtime, and the season was criticized widely throughout the league. Ross appeared in 13 games the following season, but disappointed again with playtime, catching just 21 of 58 passes for 210 yards and 7 scores. He quickly gained the label as a bust. Ross had a good first quarter of the 2019 season with 328 yards and 3 scores, but has been out with a collarbone injury since. The disastrous John Ross era in Cincinnati continues. 10th overall, the Kansas City Chiefs took Texas Tech quarterback Patrick Mahomes. There aren't a lot of picks in the draft that were better than the Texans' selection of Watson, but this is one. Mahomes started his freshman season as a backup to Davis Webb, but after Webb went down with an injury, he took over, posting 1,547 yards, 15 touchdowns, and just 4 interceptions as a freshman for Texas Tech while splitting time with the baseball team where he was a relief pitcher. Mahomes was the starter for the season as a sophomore and finished the year with 4,653 yards, 36 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions. He decided to leave the baseball team following the year to focus on football, and it paid off. Mahomes set the NCAA record for total offensive yards in a game with 819 in a historic 66-59 loss to Oklahoma and Baker Mayfield. He led the country in passing yards with 5,052 and touchdowns with 53 as a junior. He was awarded the Sammy Baugh Award, given to the nation's top passer, was named second team All-Big 12, and opted to declare for the draft. Mahomes was projected to be a late first or early second round pick and quickly rose up as one of the rising prospects during the draft process before being taken by the Chiefs. Mahomes sat behind starter Alex Smith as a rookie and saw only one game of action in Week 17, where he had 284 yards and threw an interception. After the Chiefs traded away Smith in the offseason, Mahomes took over as the starter and didn't disappoint. He had one of the greatest seasons in NFL history, throwing for 5,097 yards, 50 touchdowns, and just 12 interceptions, en route to winning NFL MVP, being named a first-team All-Pro and making his first Pro Bowl. He is the second player in the league history with over 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns in a season, the first being Peyton Manning. He was named 4th on the NFL's top 100 list of 2019. Mahomes played about half of the start of the 2019 season before going down with a dislocated kneecap. He's expected to return after 3 weeks of recovery. In his time playing, he racked up an impressive 2,180 yards, 15 touchdowns, and a single interception. The New Orleans Saints own the 11th overall pick, where they took Ohio State cornerback Marshon Lattimore. Lattimore had a tough start at Ohio State, redshirting his freshman season while the Buckeyes won the national championship and then only playing in 7 games the following season due to hamstring injuries. He had 4 tackles in his limited time. He was able to get healthy for the 2016 season and returned as a starter, where he had a great year, racking up 41 tackles and 4 interceptions. He was named first team All-Big 10 and declared for the draft, where he was projected to be a first-round pick and the top corner in the draft despite limited experience. The Saints planned on letting Lattimore slowly make his way into the starting lineup, but after starter Delvin Brow fractured his fibula and PJ Williams being disciplined for his actions, Lattimore started as early as week 4. He had an incredible rookie season with 52 tackles, 5 interceptions, and a forced fumble. He was named Defensive Rookie of the Year and made his first Pro Bowl. Lattimore had a good season in 2018 with 59 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 4 forced fumbles. He most notably had 2 interceptions against the Eagles in the NFC divisional round game. Through the first half of the 2019 campaign, Lattimore has 36 tackles and an interception. And finally, with the 12th overall pick in the draft, the Houston Texans took Clemson QB Deshaun Watson. Watson has been a stud in the league since his arrival and is among the best quarterbacks this season, along with Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson. He proved his overwhelming talent in college, and it's translated over well to the pros. It's a shock that he wasn't selected until the 12th pick, and there are plenty of teams that wish they had him now. This has been Who Are the 11 Players Drafted Before Deshaun Watson? Thank you guys so much for watching. We'd like to give a big thanks to our friends over at MyBookie who help us continue to make the content you all love so much. If you have any interest on betting on any of the games on a Sunday, MyBookie is one of the most reliable online sports books. Anyone who uses our code DRAFTED with the link below will get their first deposit doubled up to $1,000. We've personally used this site over the last year and use it to cast all of our personal bets. Again, if you have any interest on putting money on who you think will win on a Sunday or in any sporting event, head over to MyBookie and use our code DRAFTED in the link below to get your first deposit doubled up to $1,000.